Hello everybody, thank you for coming back and welcome to my very first video of 2020. The purpose of this video is actually to illustrate the entire hacking process in digestible formats, meaning I don't want to publish videos that are an hour long, so I'm going to try to break down the entire hacking process into minute, more digestible pieces. My goal for this was about 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes each. And what this particular video is going to be about penetration testing. We're actually hacking a CTF or capture the flag scenario called DC8. We are going to go all the way from knowing nothing of the machine to having root access to the machine itself. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on in. Okay, Control-Alt-T gets me my terminal over here. I already do have this bad boy running over here. Let me get into my CTF directory. Okay, DC8, that's what I made earlier, and I already made an nmap directory here. So the very first thing that we need to do, okay, so here comes the actual video here. So the very first thing that we need to do is we need to identify the host, go through the host discovery phase here. This is not tough because this is actually a CTF that's on my local area network or my virtual local area network. So let's go ahead and figure out what this is. Now, typically you can use netdiscover, or in my particular case, I prefer to use arpscanl. I take a look at here. 1, 2, 3, as you guys all know, are going to be part of my virtual network. There are virtual devices within my network. So, and it also excludes my IP address on this machine, so the only other target is 10.0.0.4.5. All right, so now that we have the host, we know that the host is up. It did respond to the ARP scan here. It is up. What is the next thing that we need to do? We need to scan the host. Now see, this is my particular process for scanning. SC for safe running scripts, SV for versions, and then also application. We'll also run some additional scripts on top of that. So nmap SC SV -A is my actual go-to scan by default. I'll use more or different types of scans as the situations arise, but this is the one I use by default. Most of the time it gets me covered. Additionally, on top of that, I would say ON. I would do a ON, and this actually saves the file into a greppable format, or saves the output of nmap into a greppable format, and something that I can just read off screen, because chances are you'll probably clear your screen, you'll run out of buffer, and then you'll have to run the scan again. I'm not a big fan of wasting time, neither should you. Say 10.0.0.4.5, okay, 10.0.0.4.5, and I forgot to send it. I'm going to go ahead and say DC8, DC8 nmap1, so that's what I'm going to name it. I'm going to go ahead and run it on through. Now, luckily for you guys, I already ran this through, so I don't have to wait. So I'm just going to go ahead cat DC8, DC8 nmap, and this is what comes out. Now, it's a lot of stuff that's on the screen, but let me break it down to you. All right, so take a look at here. Host is up at 0.0055 latency. You're not going to get numbers like these unless it's on your local area network. There is essentially no latency with this device. All right, down over here, it tells us that port 22 and port 80 is open. It looks like port 22, not a huge surprise, but it's running SSH, and that version of SSH is Open SSH 7.4. P1 running on Debian 10. Okay, so that actually gives us a little bit of information there. Okay, on top of that, we have our host keys here. Okay, good to know. Not a huge surprise. Most Linux systems run SSH for remote access, remote capturing, exclude what I just said about remote capturing. Just remote access, encrypted remote access. Okay, but fairly common. Everybody should be using this. Okay, port 80 HTTP. That's unencrypted HTTP traffic. Looks like we are running Apache over here. And on top of that, doesn't have a version of Apache. That's fine. We can figure it out if we really actually need to know more. about it, but we know that port 80 is listening. We have an Apache web server running on port 80, and on top of that, it looks like Drupal 7. Okay, so we know that Drupal 7 is running as a CMS or content management service on this particular device. Again, so let's recache that. We have a Linux computer running on Debian 10 with an Apache web server running on port 80. Looks like 443 is not running, so we can just assume that we can probably jump to that. But before that, let's go ahead and see what else we have. So since I ran the scripts, where did it go? Well, anyway, the sc command and the v and the -a command gave us also this additional scripts. What we ended up looking for was actually we found that there is a robots.txt file here, and basically it tells us what disallowed entries there are. Okay, so looking at this information, looks like we have these. I'm assuming that these folders do exist. We might not be able to reach them, but these do exist, and they weren't supposed to be indexed. On top of that, we do see we have install PHP, and then we also have install mysql.txt there. Okay, it's leading me to believe that there's PHP, and there is PHP and MySQL running on this particular server. Is that a huge surprise? No, not really. So if you take a look at Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP, that spells out LAMP. What is LAMP? If you guys have ever looked, if you guys have been around for a while, you guys might be familiar with a LAMP stack, L-A-M-P, Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP. That makes the LAMP stack. Very, very common, very common in today's day and age. Okay, so take a look at here. We do find out that we do have a Linux kernel running on here. Not a huge surprise. All right. So let's recap that. So according to this nmap, we have a server running Debian 7.4. We have port 22, port 80 open. At port 80 open when we scan the common ports. There might be other ports running on a UDP but we'll get to that if we need to. If we have, but as it is right now, this is a good start. We have information about this particular machine. So now let's go ahead. And browse this particular machine after I do something on the back end. Knowing fully that this is running HTTP, what I can do now is I can actually run Nikto. Now Nikto H 10.0. While this runs, I'll explain what Nikto does to you guys. 10.0.0.4.5. Okay, let's just go ahead and run that. Now, what Nikto does, it is a web server vulnerability assessment application. Basically, it just scans for known vulnerabilities against a web server, and that's basically what we're looking for here. Yes, it also does a little bit of cursory directory traversal. So notice over here that we have found some different entries that we might not have had access to or had any awareness of if we just went to the web page itself. Okay, so while this is running here, let's maximize our time. Let's go ahead and open up Firefox 10.0.0.4.5, and because I love using this Yakquake thing, I'm going to put an and sign right there. And for those of you guys that don't know, whenever you put an and sign at the end of a command in Linux, it just runs it in the background, so you can still use your terminal there. Okay, so let's go ahead and press F12, get rid of that, and looks like we have here a web server running Drupal. Not a huge surprise. Let me go ahead and maximize this. Oh, it was maximized. Okay, so let me go ahead and maximize this bad boy over here. It looks like we have I know it's Drupal because this is the Drupal logo over here, and it's also powered by Drupal over here. So we have multiple points of correlation that leads us to believe this is Drupal. Okay? Always think about multiple points. You don't ever want to treat one point of data as absolute truth. The more and more points you have leading to that decision, that should solidify your assumptions. All right, we move around over here. We can go into DC8 menu, go here. All right, looks like there's nothing much else here. Okay, home, who we are, contact us. All right, so take a look at that. Okay. All right, so one other thing to take a look at over here is that we do see that we do have this query string up here, NID3. We know that MySQL is running. well, we have an assumption that MySQL is running, and we have an assumption that PHP is running on here. And then additionally on top of that, we have a query string here, notably seen in these kinds of platforms. Okay, so that leads me to believe that we have another venue here. Now, this is, as far as complexity goes, this is a very simple site. I'm not going to go too goo gaga about it as of right now, but let's go ahead and explore. Let's go ahead and explore what we found earlier with Nikto. Now I'm going to go ahead, for those of you guys that didn't know what that was meta key, or the Windows key, left, and that made it take up half my screen here. So let's go and take a look. Okay, user password, okay, user login, that's interesting. Okay, let's take a look at this. User login, let's get rid of that query string, Control-Shift-V, or actually Control-V in this instance. All right, it looks like we do have a login screen here, which is cool. This is good. This is good. Now it's kind of telling me, okay, now that we are, doing our little bit of reconnaissance here, we found out there's a login page that we can get into. How about this? Let's see what kind of request. How this thing works. So let's go into here, built into Firefox is inspect elements. Let's go on over to network over here and then say, you know what? I just want to track admin. As in, I don't really care if it works. I just want to see what the query string looks like. Let's maximize this thing again. And let's see here. Post. Okay, so we posted information here. Let's move this on over. Why is my mouse like this? And let's go back over to hit and resend. Okay, so this was the request that I moved on through. Name equals admin, pass equals admin. I can use this query string. I can put this in the back of my mind. So I can use this query string here to generate some sort of a brute force attack if we get there. Okay, so as of, for brute force attacks though, it's not really my first choice of how to get into a system. We still have a couple more avenues, or a couple other avenues that we can go to. Now let's go ahead and move on over to more enumeration. Hunches down. We're not quite done yet, but we do see here we have a nid2. So let me just go ahead and copy that, or that query string there. So what we're going to do now, save this information here. Looks like we got a bunch of cool stuff there. Okay, so let's clear this out. Okay, so let's go ahead and use sql-map. sql-map u, Control-Shift-V, and what we're just basically going to do is try to see if there's injection points of this so-called SQL server, or MySQL server over here. If it's running, if we can make a couple of queries against it. So that's sql-map. Looks like sql-map resumed and found in following injection points. Stored in a session. We have a get parameter nid and get over here. Looks like we are able to communicate and pull information from this database. So let's go ahead and figure out, well, one, I need to know what the name of this database is. Okay, okay, same thing here, --dbs will get us the name or enumerate the database names. Now notice over here we have information schema and then DC7DB. I am not too concerned about information schema. This is kind of a default database that MySQL uses to describes the database is running on this particular server. Not interested about that, but I am interested in D7DB. Okay, so if I go take a look at D7DB, I can just go ahead and say, you know what, get rid of DBS, change that to a capital D, D7DB as for database. So basically, we're going to query this particular database. I'm going to use tab tables. Okay, so what we're going to do right now is tables. We're going to try to enumerate the tables that are on this database. And look at here, we have a bunch of tables available to us, actions, off map, and basically this is the process of enumeration. We're just looking for more information in here. Not every table in here is going to yield any results, but we're going to take a look. Okay, anything that might be interesting, maybe users. Oh, hey, there you go, users. Users, accounting information, any type of sensitive data, we can take a look at that. But it looks like over here, we do have a users section. Okay, we do have a user section. Why are we looking for a user section? Well, because we have a user logon user login. We try to figure out how to get in this bad boy over here. All right, so let's go ahead and move on over to that. Looks like we are good. So in the same fashion, we are drilling down a little bit further. T, capital T this time, and we are going to be looking for users, the table. Okay, users, and I want columns from here. Notice sql-map u. This is the IP address, or the URL, I should say, and this is the query string that we saw earlier. So we're using this one particular query string. We are enumerating. We are stating the database that we found out earlier. We are stating then, after the fact, what table we're enumerating, and now we're enumerating the columns. So let's go take a look at what possibly is in the columns. All right, so within the table that is users, there are these columns in here. Now take a look over here. We have name, mail, pass, name and pass. That is interesting information. All right, so let's go ahead and keep on enumerating, drilling down. I'm sure some of you guys will be able to guess what happens then. I remove -- tables and I will change it with C. I'm actually more focused on the actual table itself. Not table, but columns itself. And I want to pull name, pass, name, comma, pass, and let's go ahead and say status as well. Except for this time, we need to actually use a different command at the very end. We want to use the dump command. Okay, notice that if I don't use the dump command, this is going to error out. So I'm just going to use it without. I'm just going to have it error out here. There's not any information that we have. What I want to use the dump command for is dump the values within these columns to the screen. Okay. All right, and notice over here we do have ourselves. Okay, we do have ourselves some usernames. Admin and John gave us some usernames. All right, so what? Let's go ahead and end this particular section right here. And let's move on to the next one in the next video, okay? All right, so, okay, that's all I got.